NBA draft this year, and 6 college basketball teams that have a lot of really cool stories to share.
And we'll start with the preseason top 25 team in the state of Nebraska. That's Creighton men's basketball. Last year, 25-11 record. Went to the NCAA tournament, won a game for the 5th straight year. Their key additions this year, they have Josh Dix and Owen Freeman coming over from Iowa. Nick Graves coming in from Charlotte. They were 3rd in the Big East preseason poll. Now, Mason, when you look at this, obviously you're losing a ton with Ryan Kalkbrenner out the door, with Stephen Ashworth out the door. So this is a new look team for Greg McDermott, but they have a lot of talent on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, Greg McDermott has said this is probably the deepest team that they've had in his Creighton tenure, which is saying something because they've had a lot of really good teams. But you mentioned it. You lose a guy like Ryan Kalkbrenner. I mean, he's balling out with the Charlotte Hornets right now. How do you replace that? Well, they have a lot of depth across the board. They brought in some size, but also some guard strength. I know in the exhibition, Nick Graves is a guy who stood out early. Exhibitions gave an opportunity to see a lot of different guys, not necessarily like they mean the world. I mean, Jackson McAndrew and Owen Freeman didn't even play against Iowa State, but depth is going to be a really big building block for the team this year.
It'll certainly be a challenge for Greg McDermott, and we're going to hear from him right now. We caught up with him at Creighton Media Day. Here's my interview with head coach Greg McDermott. Era of Creighton basketball, Mac. You got 9 newcomers. How are all the pieces fitting together in year 16?
Some days better than others, but we're getting there. It's been a fun group to coach. I think they get along really well. I think they've embraced our style of play and our culture and what we're trying to do. And there's certainly been some positive signs, and there's been some things we need to clean up. But that's part of this time of year.
For the last 5 years, there's been a pretty clear identity of Creighton basketball. You don't have Kalkbrenner this year. Do you as a coach feel like you're flexing muscles that maybe you haven't had to for the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, you go back to some things we've done in the past, whether it be with Justin Patton, Martine Krompel, Christian Bishop. We played different defensively when we had those guys. And we'll have to go back to some of that. Kalk was a unicorn in terms of the way he was able to impact the game on both ends of the floor, and certainly our success is in a lot of ways attributed to what he was able to do. But this group has different strengths, and they've been fun to coach, and it'll look a little bit different, but I'm hopeful the results will be similar.
Now you have an abundance of talent. You've talked about it, 2 through 4, a bit of a logjam there. How do you see the competition sorting itself out so far? Is anybody kind of ahead of the game when it comes to preseason camp so far?
Well, just when you think it's sorting itself out, somebody else kind of elevates their play and changes your mind a little bit. But it's sometimes preseason camp's a little bit like the stock market. It goes up and down, and guys have great practices and poor practices, and you try not to put too much weight on either. You're really looking for consistency and who's going to do it, who can best do it day by day, and we know what to expect. But to your point, there's a lot of guys that can play, and there's a lot of guys that probably have shown me that they deserve to be in the rotation, but unfortunately, there's going to be 3 or 4 that don't play.
Mac, thank you so much for the time, and good luck this year.
Thanks, Clayton.
From Coach Greg McDermott. The first thing that comes to mind is obviously that there's going to be a question of how Owen Freeman comes back here, coming off of a knee surgery this offseason. We saw a little bit of him in the Colorado State game, didn't play in the Iowa State game, but nonetheless, he's going to be a big piece for them as they look to move on from Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, and Owen was named to the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar watch list today, so some news there. Top 20 center in college basketball. Definitely said after the Colorado State exhibition that he felt the rust of not playing for an extensive period of time. But it helps when you've got guards to push the pace and get you open. Nick Graves led the team in scoring, 15 against Colorado State, 13 against Iowa State. Played a slower pace at Charlotte. He's really pushed the narrative since he's got to Creighton. He said that's kind of his preference anyway. But he's one of a number of new guys who are really going to look to open things up, space the floor, and get the big guys underneath some room to run.
That's right. One of 9 newcomers for Creighton men's basketball. The other thing that was interesting that Coach McDermott said was, guys, stock is going to rise and fall. Right. We've seen a lot of guys in the exhibition season where their stock has been rising.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Graves. He's one of them. Ty Davis. You get some returners, too, who get maybe an increased role, some more opportunity. Hit a half-court buzzer beater at halftime in the Colorado State exhibition. Again, this is an opportunity for guys to get run and figure out some rotations, because that's going to be the most difficult thing for Greg McDermott to do. He said as much himself, trying to get who plays well together and who is able to separate themselves. And guys who maybe deserved to play or get more minutes might not get as much as they want just because they have so many guys and so many fresh legs they can rely on.
Yeah, I mean, the list keeps going of guys that impressed us, from the exhibition season. I want to point out also Blake Harper, who's been really impressive coming over from Howard after his freshman season.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about, he's a 40% three-point shooter, but also we have not talked about enough how effective he is at getting to the line. He is third in the country from last year in free throw attempts. He had 13, I believe. He got the line 13 times in the 2 exhibition games as well. This guy is dynamic when it comes to drawing fouls. I think he drew 10 total fouls, if I'm not mistaken, in those games. So just affecting the game in any way possible. But there is a logjam there when it comes to the wing for Creighton, and you have a ton of guys that are capable of playing, and like Coach McDermott said, not everybody is going to get to play.
Right, and you mentioned Blake. I mean, Harper's a guy that some people might have had questions. Will his game translate from Howard to the Big East? I mean, early impressions indicate that it will transfer, and he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. We were talking to him at Creighton Media Day, and he said, it doesn't really matter if I'm the one scoring. Who are you going to guard when it comes to this team? He said as much to us. Like, anybody can go off at any given night. And we mentioned Josh Dix a little bit. He's on the Jerry West Award watch list, top 20 shooting guard in the country entering the season, averaged over 14 a game in his junior season at Iowa last year, and a Council Bluffs native. So he's home now and told us he's enjoying some home cooking sometimes. And we'll see if he gets some home cooking going at CHI a lot this year.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't see Creighton exactly light it up from three-point range. I mean, they were fine. It was 19 of 57 in the 2 exhibition games, which also you don't have starters, so how much do you read into exhibition stats? But you have a ton of three-point shooting, not only that was here from last year with Jackson McCann, Drew Fedor, Zukic, Isaac Trout, but you have a ton of guys coming in. You mentioned Josh Dix, 42% career three-point shooter. Blake Harper, as I said, 40% at Howard. Hudson Greer, 39% three-point shooter in his high school career as well. And then you have a guy like Nick Graves, 33% in his career at Charlotte, but 6 of 10 in the exhibitions. And we know Greg McDermott, just his skill running an offense. Alan Huss as well now in the mix. Their ability to create the right shots for guys. We saw that with Jemiah Neal, Pop Isaacs last year. They both had significant increases in their three-point percentage last year after, you looked at what they were looking like coming over from Arizona State and from Texas Tech. They weren't exactly lighting it up from distance, but they came in, they found the right system for them. I certainly see that happening for guys like Nick Graves, Austin Swartz as well, and we saw that in the 2 exhibitions.
Yeah, Swartz is a guy I was going to mention who might be flying a little bit under the radar in terms of impact transfers. He got run in both exhibition games, transfer from Miami, and he's a guy who can also space the floor. You just mentioned guys who can come in at any given time. Alan Huss, too, being involved now. You mentioned just the uptick in three-point shooting for some of these newcomers in years past with this program. Well, Alan Huss is going to be a lot more involved with the offense. Greg McDermott said he's pretty much given the offensive reins, or at least a large majority of that, to Alan Huss. And we saw what he did at High Point making the tournament last year. So it'll be really interesting to see how these guys grow in the system over the year as well.
And we haven't even mentioned some names. I mean, Jason Green certainly looks better, and he was versatile when Pop Isaacs went down, going 3-4, just transitioning with different positions. His IQ, what he brings to this team. And you said Ty Davis was impressive in the minutes that we've seen from him, the growth he's had. Josh Townley Thomas also has had some great minutes for them in those couple exhibition games. Karam Conan as well. We've seen some really impressive guys. So, I mean, McDermott
you just keep naming them.
Yeah,
no matter who you're talking about.
When we're talking about, how there's going to be guys capable of playing that aren't going to get out there. But, Greg McDermott's teams, a key of his culture is unselfishness, and that's really going to be put to the test this year when you have only so many minutes to go around with so many quality players.
I think the ultimate goal every year for especially this program specifically is make the tournament, but then make a run. And in order to do that, I mean, unselfishness is going to be the key. Guys will have to stay the course and, be dominant in their role. I think that's the main theme this year is when you get in the game, make an impact and then be ready to come out and let another guy with fresh legs come right back in for you. Greg McDermott's talked about the ability for them to do that, which they might not have had very much in the past.
We'll see how it all looks starting Wednesday against South Dakota here at CHI Health Center. That's going to be an exciting one.
Stuff.
Transitioning over to Nebraska men's basketball, they went 21-14 last year. Disappointed by that losing streak towards the end, didn't make the NCAA tournament, but they turned it around, made the college basketball crowd. Not only made it, they went on to win the whole thing out in Vegas. Key additions, Price Sanford over from Iowa, Jamarcus Lawrence coming back from URI. That's an interesting one. Now, the Big Ten preseason media poll has them as just 14th out of 18th, so not a lot of respect for the Huskers. Plenty of poster board material there coming in, but nonetheless, we talk about they brought a lot in, Fred Hoiberg, but the biggest thing that they have in terms of an offseason addition is the return of Rink Mass.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and he showed that in both exhibition games, most clearly against 8th-ranked BYU. Now, again, none of those wins or stats actually count, but for a guy who missed the entire season with a knee injury to come back and make the impact he did, game-high 31 points against BYU, 7 of 8 from 3, it really looked like he didn't miss a beat at all. And you kind of compare and contrast that with an Owen Freeman at Creighton who, coming back from an extended injury and maybe looked a little rustier and said himself he was a little rustier. Rink really didn't show any sign of that. I mean, he came back like he never left, and he doesn't just make an impact with his scoring. It's really every phase of the game. His vision, his ability to space the floor as a stretch big and find open guys. And I think this team for Nebraska this year will be a more dynamic shooting team. Now, I don't think they'll match the clip that they did in the 2 exhibitions consistently. It might be a little more up and down, but if they do, I mean, it would be pretty amazing considering how efficient they were in those games.
Nebraska had 2 exhibition wins over BYU, which was really impressive, and Midland as well. You were at the BYU game. What were your major takeaways from that game?
Yeah, besides Rink, I mean, Rink Mass was the whole storyline. He outscored A.J. DeBansa, who is projected to be potentially the number 1 draft pick in the NBA draft this coming June, whenever the NBA draft actually is. But besides Rink, I think a guy like Jamarcus Lawrence being back is going to be really impactful. He knows the culture already. You don't typically see in today's college basketball guys leave and then transfer back. It just kind of speaks to the culture at Nebraska and what Fred Hoiberg has built, and that'll be really interesting. The shooting, obviously, Price Sanford from Iowa maybe wasn't as consistent or streaky as the BYU game, but Midland, he really came alive. So it's kind of another story of if some guys are down, other guys are going to step up. Connor Esigian had 20 against BYU and then let maybe Price lead the way a little bit more. Braden Frager is a guy who redshirted last year. Another storyline, you don't see too many red shirts in college basketball. He looked pretty dynamic against Midland. So going to be really interesting to see which guys step up in which moments all year long.
Not to mention Cale Jacobson, Ashland Greenwood's own, also impressing in the Midland game as well.
Yeah, and he's a guy who can go from playing your 5 if you want to go small ball to your point guard. So that's kind of an interesting element, lets you play however you really want to play if you're Fred Hoiberg. And that comes back to Rink Mass. You have a center who can, do you up in the post and then also stretch the floor and hit 7 of 8 from 3-land. So it's pretty interesting, the lineups that Fred Hoiberg can play with this year.
Not to mention also 27 threes in those 2 exhibition games. Maybe seeing a little more perimeter shooting this year out of the Huskers.
Yeah, and you get, like I said, a guy like Price Sanford out of the portal, who's a big-time shooter over at Iowa. Connor Esigian's developed a reputation now as a shooter. Jamarcus Lawrence can spin from beyond the arc. And then they have some other big guys that they brought in, too, obviously, to kind of help Rink when Rink needs to go out. Ugnias Yarusevicius transfer from Central Michigan. They got some more foreign flavor on the roster as well in the post. It'll be really interesting to see how they all come together.
So the Huskers will look to get to their they've been talking also about trying to get to their first, not only making their first NCAA tournament, but then not only making the NCAA tournament, trying to go out and get that first elusive NCAA tournament win.
Yeah, it's their main objective. And Connor Esigian said this year in the preseason that not only is it their goal, but they really think they can do it. And I think it's a weird or an interesting dichotomy that Nebraska coaches and players are very confident, we can make the tournament and win their first tournament game, yet contrast that with where they are in the Big Ten preseason poll. They're 14th. Might not even make the Big Ten tournament if that holds. So that would obviously put them far away from their end goal. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. I know they're going to play motivated and with a chip on their shoulder all year.
So the Huskers going for history. Omaha men's basketball coming off some history as well. We transition over to the Mavericks. You take a look at this, and you have a 22-13 record, first NCAA tournament berth for the Mavericks. Summit League champs. Key additions: Christian Richardson, Julian Margrave. Julian coming over from South Alabama. Richardson coming over from Long Beach State, the 7-footer as well. Summit League preseason poll, they came in at second as well. So Mason, taking a look at this. Obviously they had a close scrimmage against Drake last Friday, came out with the win. A lot of changes for this team, but Coach Crutchfield relying on a lot of his key returners, and that starts with Tony Osborne.
Yeah, he's a guy who just brings the juice every single day. I mean, whether it was practices in the preseason or obviously that Drake exhibition was closed, but he's a guy who's been in the program, very vocal communicator, vocal leader. He's coaching guys up, whether he's on the bench or running the floor. And he's also a guy who will probably be more dynamic in the backcourt in terms of running the offense. Chris Crutchfield said in the preseason that he's going to be more ball-dominant guard than maybe he's been in the past, more of a true 2, catch-and-shoot 3, run the shooting guard spot. He's learned the offense, and he's a veteran, and they're going to lean on him a lot, especially with a lot of new guys on the floor this year.
Omaha loses Markel Sutton, J.J. White from last year. Sutton going off to LSU, a team that they're going to see at LSU later in this non-conference season. J.J. White going off to Baylor. So a lot lost for Chris Crutchfield and the Mavericks, but nonetheless, as I said, he's going to be relying a lot on some of these returning guys. I mean, you look, Lance Waddle's obviously a major contributor to that tournament team. Jay-Sean Glover, Isaac Ondakane started all but one game last year. Cameron Thomas. Aiden Scratt is also a guy in some of the practices that we've been in. We've seen him getting involved in the offense a lot more, but Osborne, the major shifting over two-point guard. At first for him, it was a little bit of a struggle. He had told us trying to, figure out the, pass first, catch, take the shot nonetheless, but he's starting to figure it out. He was a 40% shooter last year. So the Mavericks are in good shape, but as Coach Crutchfield had talked about, he had a tough time trying to schedule even in this non-conference. Once they made the tournament, made that big splash, suddenly he was struggling to find teams wanting to play him. I think he said in that availability that you went to, he said something like he was telling other teams, oh, no, don't worry, we're not going to be that good this year.
No, we're going to be pretty bad, actually. Come schedule us. We need games. I mean, it's come a long way, just the program in general, to go from not irrelevance necessarily, but the strides they've taken under Crutchfield to now have teams mid-major or beyond not even want to play him anymore. And a guy that we should definitely mention, Brock Scholl, Omaha Scott Catholic alum. He's made strides since he arrived in the program. The coaches tell us that he was hurt early on when he first got into the Mavericks program, but really come a long way, and a guy who could be a dynamic freshman in college basketball this year.
For sure. And also when I talked to him when he was still at Scott Catholic, he was really hoping that they were going to have some of the trash can
got to keep that going.
Still going. So I've talked to a couple players who were excited, hoping to see that happen.
Well, he can probably take some tips from you, I think.
That's right.
You did that pretty well, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. But, we're excited to see, this is coming off of that first NCAA tournament berth, all that excitement. How do they follow it up? It's difficult to be a mid-major right now when you have teams that are, you're essentially becoming a farm team for some of these power conferences. Yeah.
And I mean, they're going to try to carry on the magic from last year to make that tournament run. They're obviously going to be playing motivated as well, just from the offseason storyline this year and the passing of their player Dang Mayer. Unfortunately passed away in a tragic drowning incident when he was away from the team in Utah. So the team will be playing with heavy hearts throughout the season, but they plan to honor him all year long. And just that brings so much emotional motivation. I feel like you're playing for a guy who you joined the program in the off season, but you spent time with countless hours in the weight room and on the court when he was with the program, and just a really sad situation there. They're going to definitely be playing with him on their mind all season long.
That they will, and the season starts for them on Monday up in South Dakota. They'll be playing Murray State, and former Creighton assistant Ryan Miller, who has
more Omaha ties there.
A load of former Blue Jays that are now with him in Murray, Kentucky as well. Well, we're going to shift over to women's basketball now, and we start with the Creighton Blue Jays. Jim Flannery's crew was 26-7 last year. They made the NCAA tournament for a fourth straight season, but picked fifth in the Big East women's basketball poll this year. Not used to seeing them that low, Mason, and that's because they don't have Morgan Molly coming back, Lauren Jensen, Molly Mogensen. This is a year of transition for the Blue Jays. Yeah,
it really is. Now, they offset that by bringing in their highest-rated recruiting class in team history, but Jim Flannery has said that no matter if you're a transfer entering the program, but especially freshmen, the acclimation to college basketball is difficult, and he's practicing patience. That's his main theme this year. He's kind of said he wants to keep the expectation high and the standard high, and the players don't feel that the standard is going to dip off at all. They're very confident in what they'll be able to do, but he's also balancing that out with, he's been a college basketball coach for a while now. He said the age has maybe calmed him down some, and that's going to maybe be helpful as they do go through the ups and downs of this new era of Creighton women's basketball. They have some great players, though. I mean, some great returning pieces. Kennedy Townsend, you see there, and Keani Lockett have been praised this offseason for their leadership. And they've played a lot of minutes. They might not have been starters over the last 4 years, but they've played a lot of minutes as Blue Jays, and they're looking to lead this group back to the NCAA tournament.
And I think they're what better players to lead, not only veterans, but players that played behind some really talented pieces for a number of years, especially in the transfer portal era. These are girls that could have gone off somewhere else and found a just as solid of an opportunity somewhere else, but they wanted to stay, build, progress, and now they're getting their opportunity here to lead this Blue Jays program as they look for a 5th straight NCAA tournament.
And it's really important we should mention, just speaking of the transfer portal, they brought in a high-value addition in Grace Buffelli from Northern Iowa. She's played Creighton, 6-year senior now. She's played Creighton, I think, 4 times when she was at UNI, and she was injured. She tore her ACL and hadn't played since, I think, last January, but her leadership and her presence in the locker room is something that Coach Flannery and all the players really have said has been really important. She's brought so much versatility and a different voice maybe than an outside perspective. So definitely should give her flowers. She said she's expecting to maybe have a little rust on the floor, but her presence in that locker room is being felt. That's for sure.
Creighton men's and women's basketball with a lot of parallels this year, with a lot of turnover, a center coming off of an injury as well. So I think Greg McDermott and Jim Flannery can look back
bouncing
and forth.
Ideas off each other.
Exactly. Well, we'll transition over to Lincoln. Amy Williams' crew made the NCAA tournament last year, 21-12 record. Now, the Big Ten preseason poll only lists the top 5 teams.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Which is, let's go with interesting. But the AP Top 25, they did receive 2 votes, so a little bit of national recognition there. You do lose Alexis Markowski, a huge piece for this crew. But Mason, there's still a lot of talent on this team, and it starts with the Elkhorn North alum, Britt Prince.
Oh, absolutely. She is a dynamic player. She obviously came in highly touted last year as a true freshman, averaged just under 13.5 points per game. So her introduction to college basketball was pretty smooth sailing after winning multiple state titles there at Elkhorn North. She's going to be the leader in the backcourt. She's just named to the Nancy Lieberman Award watch list. So you talk about national recognition, a couple of AP votes in the preseason. They also get a couple players on watch lists. Britt Prince, and then Natalie Potts back from injury. She is also on a watch list as well. So important to have pieces in place, especially when you lose a dynamic player like Alexis Markowski. I mean, she was a do-it-all forward her entire career, record breaker. Going to need a lot of different girls to fill that hole. Natalie Potts won Freshman of the Year in the Big Ten, but then got injured, so I'm very curious to see how she kind of responds from that and shakes the rust off.
Amy Williams has a lot of talent to work with, that's for sure. Well, finally, we transition over to Omaha women's basketball, and this is a team I almost didn't want to put the record on here of 14-17 from last year because they have a new head coach in Jamie
Clean
Carey.
slate.
Pretty much a brand new team. They were picked 8th of 9th in the preseason Summit League poll, but Mason, the Omaha Mavericks made a terrific hire with bringing in Jamie Carey. She had no ties to this area.
Right.
She played at Texas and Stanford, went on to, play the WNBA with the Connecticut Sun. She was an assistant or an associate at Colorado, Texas, North Texas, UTSA, where she was a huge part of a massive rebuild for the Roadrunners. So this is a great hire for Omaha women's basketball. That said, she had to throw a team together quick. She only had 3 players returning that saw action last year. 12 total newcomers, 9 of them freshmen. So a lot to kind of throw together all at once in year one for the Mavericks, but they've got a great captain at the helm now in Jamie Carey.
Yeah, she brings a lot of energy. I mean, you're seeing some clips from their exhibition win over Avila. I knew I was going to mess that up.
Down in Kansas City.
Yeah, led by a former Maverick starter, Remy Davenport, who's now Remy Wolf, actually. But point being, Jamie Carey on the sideline in the first time we've seen her in game action, really dynamic. Brought a lot of energy, coaching up from the sideline and in the huddles, and not the type of coach to berate. I mean, yelling, but yelling with a purpose. And I think her players are feeding off of that energy. And one of them certainly is Cora Olson. You saw some clips there. She is going to be the leader of this team. Make no mistake about it. She was exhibitions you don't play, obviously normal rotations, normal minutes. When she was in, her impact was felt in her scoring and really every other phase of the game that she was touching. But from the sideline as well, I mean, you heard her barking just like Jamie Carey was. So it seems like the team is kind of adopting Jamie Carey's energy, which is going to be really important as they kind of try to just turn the narrative of what Omaha women's basketball has been over the past few years.
Yeah, and Cora Olson also, she started 18 games for the Mavericks last year. Before she was injured, she averaged 9.4 points a game. She had an offseason hip injury as well. So the Millard South alum is going to be a big piece of this, not only on the court with her game, but she is going to be a veteran leader for a pretty young team in year one for Jamie Carey.
And a lot of newcomers, like you mentioned. That's going to be super important to have someone who's kind of seen it and lived through the old regime and kind of transitioning into this new.
Yep, and also a couple of local players coming in as well. Elsa Vidrell, the Marion alum, Avril Smith, the Millard North alum as well. So a little bit of local flavor coming in.
Yeah, Jamie Carey said that she wanted to identify talent in Omaha and in the surrounding area close by, and it seems like she really did that, assembling this roster. And obviously, that's really important to the fan base and having people who want to represent the school, the brand, and the community here. And I think they're doing just that.
Also interesting from that exhibition game, we saw a lot of minutes at the point guard spot for one transfer from Old Dominion. That's Sarai Estupinian. She's a former UTSA walk-on. Then went to Old Dominion, played a little bit there, but nonetheless, had walked on with Jamie Carey, now matches up back with her as a graduate. So I'm interested to see how she flourishes here now that she's back linking up with Jamie Carey as she starts her head coaching career.
Yeah, it's kind of cool and speaks a lot to Jamie Carey that a player would follow her to a new place that Sarai has said she'd never been here either. So just speaks volumes to the type of person and coach Jamie Carey is, and just what she's trying to build here at Omaha.
Well, the Mavericks begin the Jamie Carey era on Monday at Kansas State. Their first home game, I believe, is Thursday. College of St. Mary coming into town. They're also in town, but nonetheless, the Jamie Carey era getting underway on Monday at Kansas State. Thank you so much for watching, guys. This is our first episode here of the 402 Tip-Off. We'll be back every week to cover the games that were, the games that will be in the Nebraska Cornhusker State, featuring Creighton, Nebraska, and Omaha men's and women's basketball all season long through the last team.
Last one standing.
Yeah, maybe we'll have more than a couple of them out in the Final Fours as well.
I expect some decent runs come March. We'll see how it goes.
All right.
Happy Halloween, guys.
Thanks.